For years, I have heard about the search for Israel's perfect red heifer. And now, they have arrived in Israel.
We interrupt the rabbi because the red heifers are arriving right now. This is it. This is the moment. They've arrived, and we're about to see them for the first time here in the land of Israel. They're behind that inside that wooden box. Wow, these look like the finest red heifers from around the world. For those not familiar with the song, it's all about the Holy Temple.
InGrace has had a front row seat into these cows' amazing journey, from the fields of Texas to the land of milk and honey, and now red heifers. How does all this fit into Bible prophecy? You will find out as today we tell you the incredible story of the search for Israel's red heifer.
I'm not sure if I ever imagined I'd be on a ranch in the Dallas area looking for the perfect red heifer. But here we are. Why are we here in Dallas? Well, because this is where the story takes us, to a rancher. And the rancher has, through unusual ways, come to find the red heifer that so far has passed the scrutiny of the rabbis. Ty, do you think maybe a few years ago you would ever have imagined you being here today at a church with a red heifer?
No.
What's the story? How did this all come to be?
That was back in 1991 when it all started. I had no idea that this was what God had planned for me.
Okay, so you have the heifers being born, but you have pretty quickly a problem, and that is you ranchers tag the ear of these calves.
Fascinating.
So how early
story.
does that happen, and how did this one not get tagged?
Yeah. Well, normally I'll find those calves on the first or the second day, and I'll tag them. And if you let them get longer than that, you can't catch them anymore. They get faster, especially as I get older. We had already tagged all the calves, and so when Robert came, I said, he said, they can't have an ear tag. And I said, well, I've got a couple hundred out there, but they all have ear tags. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to be able to help you. And so we said, well, let's drive around and look anyways. And we did. And as we were driving around, we came back and we hadn't found anything. And my brother and the rabbis and I would say a little prayer and said, well, let's go one more time. And about that time, this mama cow or this baby calf came walking out of the woods.
Oh, no kidding.
And we hadn't tagged it yet. So we were all excited, and they went over and looked at it and said, this one's solid red. And these two rabbis went to examining this calf, and all of a sudden they go to crying, and then they get all excited, and they get on the telephone, and I'm hearing all this Hebrew. I don't know what they're saying, but I could tell they're excited.
Right.
3 days later, they have all these rabbis come from Israel and from around here that come out to the ranch and the news media, and they do a full examination on this calf then. Mm-hmm. And she passed all the inspections, and so that was the beginning of where we are today.
Very special. It's special that you're involved, and again, you never would have dreamed that this could be happening in your life, but here you are. Ty, it's a pleasure to meet you and to meet the pure red heifer. So we're at a very important place, the spot where you all have worked on acquiring a piece of land on the Mount of Olives. And you feel like it's the spot because you have the visual, the same level and the sight into where the temple once stood.
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about the significance of that and the whole process of the red heifer.
Let's try to start from the beginning. let's try to understand that we are not understanding everything. King Solomon says, I'm the smart guy in the world, but I don't understand the red heifer. Why cow? Why red? Why to burn it? Why in Mount of Olives? A lot of questions.
Good to have you on InGrace, and what a view, what a beautiful place that we're in this holy city of Jerusalem.
Amazing, we're a big privilege. Thank you for having me.
And you are very involved in the desire for there to be the third temple, rebuilding of the temple, but more specifically, the thing that would have to initiate it all, because before there can be temple worship, there has to be a ceremony on the Mount of Olives, and it has to do with the red heifer. So we wanted to talk to you about that, explain it to us, biblically and just practically. How are you doing this?
Okay, so let's zoom out a little bit. God has brought us back to here. I mean, we could be having this conversation here in Jerusalem. For centuries, Jews had prayed for this moment, and we have the privilege to actually be sitting here and talking.
I see God powerful and God at work in doing something that no one thought could ever happen, and that is this place be reborn as a Jewish nation.
Seeing the prophecies in front of our eyes,
yes. Yes.
folding out and coming to pass. Let's talk a minute about what is the red heifer. The red heifer is written in the book of Numbers 19, and God basically commands us to take a red heifer that has no blemish, that is innocent in the sense that it never had a yoke on it, and that it is purely red, no white or black hairs. So once you have this red heifer, you need to go not into the Jerusalem, but actually to the other side, to Mount of Olives, which we could actually see the trees right over there. And there, the whole ceremony of the red heifer happens. Now, this ceremony only happened 9 times in the human history. There are only going to be 10 heifers. And the 10th is going to come in Messiah times. So those 9, the last we had was around 2,000 years ago. That was the last of the 9. Moses conducted the first red heifer. And actually the ashes from the ceremony lasted for almost 1,000 years, 900 plus a year.
From one animal.
From one red heifer. Basically, once you have the red heifer, you then do the ceremony, and then you have ashes from the red heifer. And what you need to do is you need to take the ash and sprinkle it on people that are impure.
Which would be the nation, right? Everyone.
Yeah, all of us for the past 2,000 years have been impure from coming into contact, been to a cemetery, been to even a hospital when somebody passed away. We have different levels of purity, and when you come up to the Temple Mount, you need to be on the highest level. So this has been something that we've been lacking and missing, and we're ready for the red heifer to come back in our times.
I think the important thing is to understand that the red heifer belongs to other level, spirituality, other level that we understand today. I think that nobody today understands exactly what is the meaning of sacrifice. We don't understand the meaning of pure and impure. Is it clean? No, we know that it's not a clean. Pure, it's other level of spirituality. And we have to research, we have to look, we have to work and to try to understand, and at the same time to do. We do, and then we listen. So part of the time you have to do.
This is the place, the Temple Mount, that first David purchased, the threshing floor of Arona, and he was not able to build the temple, but his son Solomon was. And Solomon's temple was grand, it was beautiful. And that temple, unfortunately, was destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon at the time of Daniel and his captivity and the people of Judah. After the captivity, Zerubbabel came and was able to rebuild the temple, although those that saw it wept because of how grand Solomon's was and how Zerubbabel's wasn't. But later on, King Herod took and made Zerubbabel's temple, the second temple, more grand. And that's the temple that we read about in Jesus' day. Jesus had many connections with the temple. He was in the temple as a 40-day-old baby, Mary and Joseph presenting him to the Lord as required.
Next, we find Jesus in the temple at 12 years old, confounding the wisest of teachers. Jesus was here on this property, and this is where he upturned the money changers' table. As his ministry began, he visited the temple and drove out the money changers. He went to the temple for the required holy days, and there he said that he was the light of the world and the living water. He healed people around the temple, and he entered into the temple on Palm Sunday. And when he died on the cross, the veil of the temple was torn from top to bottom. Christians believe that Jesus is the Messiah and that he fulfilled the law and the prophets. We're told in Matthew chapter 5, "Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill," said Jesus. He continued and said, "For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled." Since we could not keep the law, Jesus did. Romans 8 tells us, "For what the law could not do, in that it was weak through the flesh, God sending his own Son in the likeness of sinful flesh, and for sin, condemned sin in the flesh, that the righteousness of the law might be fulfilled in us, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. Because Jesus kept the law, so can I if I walk in the Spirit every day." The Bible also teaches that we have a high priest after the order of Melchizedek. Hebrews tells us that in chapter 4, verse 14, "Seeing that we have a great high priest that has passed into the heavens, Jesus the Son of God, let us hold fast our profession." This is where he confounded the Jewish people trying to trick him. And this is where Jesus, just off this place, predicted that this all would be destroyed. And sure enough, Titus in AD 70 destroyed the temple and all of Jerusalem. But there is a prophecy in the Bible, and Daniel says there will be a third temple, a tribulation temple. And then Ezekiel talks about another temple that is here during the millennium. All of these things are future and very interesting. We as Christians have direct access to the Father because of Jesus. The veil of separation was removed, and we are now the temple of the Holy Ghost, according to 1 Corinthians chapter 6. With all of that in mind, thinking about the rebuilding of the Jewish temple, I come back to this. The most important thing is to know that you have eternal life. Jesus said, "For God so loved the world, that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life." What does that mean? That means to put your trust in, not a religion, not works, but in the one that kept the law perfectly. His name is Jesus, and you can receive him by faith right now.